When you think of California and you think of Mexico, you must remember the ball games and this culture around the Great War games and the effects of the energy and the channeling of energy, Oracle Arena.
Were said to be of a dark color, not much unlike the Ethiopians. And in that reference, I must say that Ethiopians is not necessarily referring to the people of Ethiopia, but at that time, the continent, the island of Cuba, and in Veracruz, Puerto de Caballos, which is in Honduras, and in Nombre de Dios, Cartagena, Santa Maria, and the coast of Venezuela, where there were 20 Negroes.
All of this stuff in the Bible, because understand that the Bible is not a religious book. The Quran is not a religious book. They are science books. Biblios Heliotech is the Bible. It's the full Latin name of the Bible. It is the science. It's an elementary science where Moors are concerned. It's the science of the study of the cycle of the sun. Helio meaning study, meaning sun. Biblios meaning record of. Y'all understand? The Quran, chronology, maxima, the great chronology. The Quran is the great chronology of the science and the study of the asteroid, of the astral plane. You understand?
Rain, fertility, Tautak, deity, and we see the baptism in the streams and between the legs. We understand the Milky Way and Meshi and how a lot of the... So because Jacob took the subtropics, we can see the invasion not only from the troglodytes and the Mongolians on this side coming through California, but also in East Asia as well, and into these regions of the Naga serpent. So when we see here this ocean, this great basin of this great ocean, and we look at the time of the Sagittarius and these islands, when we look at the Baphomet and how Aleister Crowley and all of these Satanists tried to take this stellar mythos and form it into this is why we call Jacob the heel catcher or the supplanter, and how he took these regions right from Esau to leave the Horites. When you understand the Horites in the polar circle, so the Horites in the polar circle in these regions above the subtropics, we understand Jacob and Rebecca telling Jacob how to steal Esau's birthright from him. When we understand Esau's name, East, when we look at Asia and the fire and the ring of fire and this coastline of the other side, when we look at the Sagittarius, we have to understand that the Sagittarius is what forms this, what they call the prime meridian. So because Jacob took the subtropics, we can see the invasion not only from the troglodytes and the Mongolians on this side coming through California, but also in East Asia as well, and into these regions of the Naga serpent. So when we see here this location of the New World, so when we look at this Baphomet and the deities, and we look at baptism and the renewing, and we understand the Indios and the Indies, from the West Indies to the East Indies, this process of whether the sun dies to be renewed again within these borders, within these parameters of this great Shin, when we understand this 120 degrees west to 240 degrees east to these regions. So when we look at the Sagittarius, which is from where we find the 150 to 180 of this last constellation, which is 240 to 270, which they have in some of the zodiac tropical constellations, of how they do some of the the zodiacs or what have you. But when we see here this mythos, these things were done to calculate time, and this is how the ancients told time. Aquarius and these islands, when we look at the Baphomet and how Aleister Crowley and all of these Satanists tried to take this stellar mythos and form it into this satanic ritual. We're talking about the killing, the death and life, and the duality of good and evil, right? And we're talking about the procession of death into life and this calculating of time. And it's how the ancients understood how they needed to behave in uprightness and perfection in different angles of geometry. So when we see this coast here, the Scorpio coast, and you see the Sagittarius and this line. We understand the Archer and the King's Chord, or this marker of the death of the sun that takes place during the winter solstice. That's in concord, connected with this chord that goes through Ghana and West Africa through the line of Cancer. So we understand the Concord, or the King's Chord, the Congo, in this region of 0 degrees to 180, which formed this location of the New World.